right. It is now 4 p.m. in the Netherlands on August 5th.
Yeah.
This is the we're still letting people into the meeting here.
Yeah.
This is our monthly Wappler meetup. We meet on the first Friday of every month at 4 p.m. in the Netherlands. You can keep track of the meetup links via Zoom in the forum in the coffee lounge. And also in the forum, I'm going to be, when I announce the meetups every month, I'm going to include like a calendar link and a way that you can subscribe so you can get a email reminder that the meetups are happening.
Yeah.
With us today, we have Paul Strydom.
Yep, that's it.
I got it right.
Yeah.
And who's going to be our presenter today. Paul is a longtime Wappler enthusiast.
Yeah.
And also we have our honored guest. I like to consider him the godfather of Wappler, Ben Plaisir from Australia.
Yeah.
He's joining us in the middle of the night. And both Ben and Paul have some awesome training tutorials on the Wappler channel that you would definitely want to check out. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Paul, our presenter today, and take it away.
Hello, everyone. So yeah, what I found was basically a situation where I don't think it's very simple for a lot of people to sort of figure out straight off the bat how a content management system would sort of work within Wappler very easily. And obviously there is quite a bit to it, in my opinion. So, I've done it a certain way for my customers, and I think that a lot of other people may be able to benefit from doing it the same sort of way. So I'm just going to share my screen here and I will start going through it. Let me just get that out the way. Okay, share screen. So I want to share that one plus that one plus that one, and that should be it to share. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we see your browser.
Okay, lovely. Okay, so if I go to Wappler, I'm going to start this like I'm starting from scratch completely. So literally I'm starting with a brand new project. So I had to move that out the way because the recording stuff is all in the way. So pretty much what I'm going to start with is a new project, a blank project. Just give it any old name, test 3, and make it today's date. Project folder, new. You will notice I use hyphens or dashes whenever I'm doing project names or file naming or anything like that, whereas like within normal code, I'll use underscores. Pretty much anything that is going to be a path at some point, so server actions, all those sort of things, I'll generally use hyphens. Node.js, Docker, just to get us up and running really fast. Yes, to the dependencies. And generally, the first thing that I like to do is go into the project settings, and I will change this over here to make it a higher version of Node, the latest, a higher version of the operating system, so Debian 11, and I prefer to change over to MariaDB 10.5, and I'll take away the sample data because I just don't sort of need it. Save that. Yes, for dependencies again. So pretty much when you are creating a content management system, obviously there's a twofold kind of thing that needs to happen here. We need to firstly be able to allow the customer to create brand new pages from scratch, as well as obviously edit existing pages. and edits existing content on pages, which is two slightly different sides to it altogether, to be honest with you. So your first sort of start at this is really creating a way to get the URLs in there. So I'm just going to call up my notes here, just so I've got everything in front of me, make sure I don't forget anything. So pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the whole like routing side. Obviously, it's given me a main page, which is where like most of the data is, and then it's given me the index page. This I don't need. So I'm just going to make sure everything's saved. Save that. And we'll start off. Let's pretend that we're going to do a website that's very, very simple. It's just literally going to have something like a home page and an about us page and a contact page. Whether I actually show all those or not is another story. But we'll start off with that. So on the index page, I'm just going to add a p tag just because I want to be able to add afterwards a block, and I'm going to add some navigation. I'll just do a simple nav like that. Personally, I prefer the dark version of this navigation, so I'll choose dark over there. Not that it actually seems to change all the correct places. It's meant to also change that, and that to dark. Not that that's really part of this tutorial, but it all kind of helps. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it into a partial, just so the navigation is a totally separate thing. Navigation into the partials, and obviously now under partials, I should see navigation. Partials, refresh. Don't know why it's not showing. Should be there. Let me just check on the finder. Make sure it's done it. Use partials. Yeah, it should be there. It's just not showing up. I'm just going to change over to files, pages. Yeah, I don't actually know why it's not showing up at this point. Anyway, it's fine. I'll quickly just restart Wappler. That'll fix it. Save. Sorry. Call it up again. Can you still see the Wappler window?
Yes.
Okay, great. So there we go. Now we've got our partial. So that's just going to remain there like that. That can kind of just be a base sort of thing. And this is going to go to /home. And this one over here is going to go to /about. So obviously, if you had to view this in a browser right now, you're really going to see like hardly anything. Sorry, it's actually open in the wrong browser. Let me just put this in Safari. So that's obviously taking me directly to the actual navigation point. I'm just going to take that away. So that's all that you're basically seeing, which obviously will take you absolutely nowhere and do nothing. And that's static content. This will need to be obviously dynamic, and these will have to come in dynamically at some point. But for now, that's how that is. And then we need a database. So in order to get this obviously to work, we have to have a database. So I'm going to start off with a new table. I'm just going to call this URL1. And I'm going to change the ID of this to URL1 _ ID. The URLs are going to require a name. So URL1 _ name. They are going to require generally a status of some point, of some state, because, obviously sometimes they may decide to disable a page at some stage and you want to just change the status from 0 to 1. So I'm going to make this a normal Boolean value and save out my database changes. Just open this as a view, and I'm going to simply add the name of home and turn that on. I'm going to save that, add another new one, about. And obviously these names are both matching what I've done on the navigation side, /home, /about, pretty much. So as long as I've got those two things over there, I can then go on to the whole routing side. So let's close out that table. We don't need it. Let's go to routing. Over here, in order for this to be dynamic, we need to change this. And if you hover over this little thing, it does actually tell you exactly what each thing does. I'm not going to go through them all, but basically I'm going to put a colon over there. So that is colon, and then I'm going to go page IDA. That can be called anything that you like. It doesn't need to be called page IDA. I'm going to put a question mark afterwards. That pretty much tells it that there could be more to the actual URL. And I'm just going to upload the routing rules. For me personally, I like to always go and check what it's actually done in the routing. It's probably a totally not required thing to do, but I just prefer to see what it's actually done. So that's what it's done in the sort of routing tables. Anyway, it seems fine for the meantime. And our next step pretty much is to make a server action that can go and fetch this sort of stuff. So over here, we need to create some form of a server action. So let's go to API, make a new folder. Let's call this navigation items or something. We'll add a new action within there. And let's call this, I just want to see what I called it before, so it actually makes sense. There. Yeah, I'm actually just going to make a new thing. It doesn't matter. My nav. Inside here, we'll have an action over here of a database single query, because we only ever want to receive one URL back from here. So query my nav, and the actual query will query the URL one table. And that is pretty much all that it needs. The only thing additional that we need to this is we have to have some form of a parameter. So when this URL is added in the browser over here, and we type in /home as an example, that parameter actually goes across and gets put into the Wappler side. So you go over here to param, add a new variable. This variable has to match whatever the name is that you've used in the routing table. So we used page IDA as an example. And so here I'll put the same page IDA, edit the database query, and I'm going to say that the name has to equal to the parameter. Okay. So now that sort of is going to work from a perspective of getting that in there. So let's just see. Yeah, it's not obviously doing anything right now. Okay, so that gets us sort of the first piece done. Obviously, we need page content, and any content that we put over here at the moment or inside a partial, inside the main area is going to be common to like every single page. So that doesn't really help us. We're going to go to the main area here. We need to be able to do things like bring in a dynamic title, and we need to be able to bring in a dynamic description as an example. So let's just go and make another table for that. So database manager. This will only be holding meta type content. So anything that is meta related. Meta data table, let's call it. Yeah, I'm just going to go MDT ID for metadata table. Let's bring in a MDT title. This will be for obviously your page titles. I think I spelled that wrong. I did. Make another one, MDT, and we'll call this one description. So that'll bring in any of your description stuff. And just for the sake of now, I'm just going to make another one. Not that it would be used later, but I'm just going to call it page content. And this is really just to show you that it's actually calling in the correct content for the correct stuff. Okay, let's go and add some data to this. View edit data. Sorry, that's something I actually forgot to do here. This also needs to obviously have a relevant link back to this URL one. So over here, we're going to have to add another part and say MDT URL one. Okay, and let's call it URL one ID, because that's the only way that it's ever going to link back to this URL one table, is that that ID and that ID match. So we're going to change this over here to a reference. And we're going to reference the table URL one. For some weird reason, it's not showing me the rest. So let me just save it and click on it again. Refresh tables. There. It's actually not showing me the table that it's going to. I'm assuming that it's going to the right table, but let me just quickly test it just in case. I'm going to use NaviCat just because I enjoy it. And let me just get the settings here from Wappler. So the settings for this is that as a password. NaviCat. Can everyone see the NaviCat program?
Yes.
Okay, cool. New connection, MariaDB. Let's just call this S3. 9906 is what Wappler does. Bring in the password, save, test3 tables, URL one. So that's fine over there. My metadata table with nothing in it at the moment is fine. I'm just going to close out these. That's for another thing I was doing. So if I check the design of this, index is correct and foreign key is correct. Okay, so it is actually correct. It's just not showing up over here. It probably did it on auto more than likely because it was able to easily figure out what I wanted by the naming convention. We'll add a new piece of data here. Sorry, I'm just going to have to. Yes. Do view edit data. Trying to make it actually bring up the change that I just made. Title, there it is there. Okay, so we know that this first one is going to be for the home page, let's say. So let's go title, home page title. Correct, yeah. Description, home page description. Page content, this is the home page. And we need to make sure that this ID here, whatever we use, has to tie back to ID, to the home page ID. So obviously from here, we know that home is an ID of one. And so therefore the same thing has to happen there. ID one has to equal ID one. So let's save that, add another new one, about page title, about page description. This is the about page. And this one will have to be 2 to match the about page. Save. So basically now we've got obviously the tables made for this thing, and we just need to sort out that this comes in dynamically from that table, and that would be totally based upon what comes from the URL table pretty much. So if we click on, while we're on main, if we click on app, we can then define our template data. So if we go here and we say add a variable. Our first piece of template data is going to be a title. Our second piece of template data is going to be a description, because those are our meta parts. And let's just save that. And then we can go here and we can actually link the title to the title. Take away this excess stuff. Link the title to the title. And we go to meta tags, description, and we can link the description to the description. So those now are correct over there, and you can see that they've done these weird little codes over there and over there. So those are definitely linked up. And all that we really need to do now is to assign the server action that's actually going to run. So you don't generally do that on main. You would then go across to index, and on the index page is generally where you are going to go and change this. The only other thing I want to make you aware of is that you can see on this body tag here, we've got body is DMX app. So the application at the moment is on the body tag. We actually need that to also take over head tag related things. So I'm going to change the app route from body to page, which is obviously going to say the HTML is now the DMX app and not the body itself. Otherwise, it can't bring in dynamic data up in this area. So from our index page, let's just reopen it because it's not showing me. This is meant to have server connect over here. Let's see why it doesn't. I actually don't know why this doesn't have the server connect side. Let's just change that from there to there. Let's refresh. Oh, there we go. Now it's come up. Okay, so I've just had to go to body and then click on the refresh to actually bring in the server connect side. Once that comes in, now you can see the myNav script that I made. And obviously there's the title and description. So you can physically link that up and say that the title is going to be the name. Sorry, I messed up something here. So I'm trying to rush.
Take your time, you're doing great.
Yeah, in this over here, metadata table. That's also got to be there. Save. Obviously, this is the new type of Wappler thing where you can have like one-to-many relationships on your tables like that. And so that's what I'm doing here. So let's just go here. And I should now have access to there. And I'll be able to put my title as that and my description as this. And if all goes according to plan at this point, I would imagine that from here, I am on home at the moment. Refresh. You actually just call this into Chrome rather. Sorry, it doesn't even show me page titles there as it would normally show me. Are you seeing my Google Chrome?
Not yet.
Not yet. Sorry, 1 second. Still not. Still not seeing it?
Nope, I see a Wappler. Here it comes.
Okay. Now this is back to Safari again. Okay, let's just try and show this to you quickly. Go here, go to developer tools. Sorry, I hardly use Safari, which is why I decided to use Safari for this, because it doesn't affect all my other thousands of tabs that are open currently. Where's like view page source or something? Show status. Yeah, I'm actually not even seeing it here. Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's just put some content on so you can actually see it. If we had to go over here and we are still on our index page. So if we had to go here and we had to say, let's bring in a server-side binding at this point, we could obviously bring in one of these things. So let's take something like the page content and save that. Go back to Safari, refresh. This is the home page. And obviously, if we change this to about, this is the about page. So obviously, it's pulling that data directly from the physical database itself. The only problem that we have at this point with this sort of a system is it doesn't pull anything for straight localhost where you don't actually have a URL in there. And so you do have to kind of assign a default page. So in your server action that we've created for MyNav, what you're going to have to do is over here for this condition, you're going to have to say when there is no parameter provided, create a what would be the default page to go to. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add that over here. So the default for this would be what value, and it's actually just a written in value, to be honest. So the value is just literally going to be home. So if nothing else is provided, then it'll go to home rather. Select, okay, save, go back to Safari, make sure that that works. So now this should take me to home. And obviously, similarly, if you were on home itself, it would also take you to the same place and you can get to the same thing through the navigation. So that's sort of point one of where the sort of normal problems come in, is getting that working. And obviously, if you can get it into a database like that, well, then half your battle's kind of won, because your customer, I mean, you can create an admin interface of some form, and your customer would easily be able to obviously insert records directly into the table URL 1, as well as into the secondary table, which is holding your metadata. And that would obviously, that's working on server-side rendering. So it will work with things like Facebook. It'll work with any of those sort of services perfectly. That was really the only piece that I really wanted to show me physically coding it. The other part of this, I think, would be easier to actually just show it already sort of done on my side, and I'll just explain what's there, because it just will make more sense, I think. Let's go to this one. So what I've basically done here is we obviously need some form of content. So if you look at the database, everything is written around the database. So, sorry, it doesn't seem to have changed this. Let's refresh. No, let's I have noticed this lately with changing projects, that some of the parts don't actually change over. Okay, so you can see the routing is the same on this particular project. That whole first piece was done exactly the same sort of way. Let's refresh. Sorry, I actually don't know why this is not coming up. Test 04. Let's try to deploy on this. Okay, yeah, there we go. So pretty much what I've done here is the same thing. You've got the URL1 table. This table here, I've called it MPC, which basically stands for meta page content. Within this meta page content, you can see I've done the same things: title, description, body copy, which obviously brings in that body copy. This is the new part over here. I've pretty much, if you look at the way that Bootstrap is built, Bootstrap works with a container on the very outside of everything. Within the container, you will have a row. Within the row, you're going to have a column. And within the column, you'll have multiple pieces of content. And those pieces of content could be anything from paragraph tags to image tags to whatever it may actually be. So we pretty much follow the same sort of idea. If you look at the index page on this particular one, I've written out a standard everyday, your container, your row inside the container, your column inside there, and then an H1 class, and then your P tag. So this is all basically static content. That's how you would normally code within Wappler, obviously. What I'm sort of proposing is that all this can come in directly from the database. So if we have a database table that only does containers as your outside database table, and we only have a table that does rows, and another table that does columns, and another table that does the internals, you can pretty much control any facet of this, whatever you want, directly from the database. So how that sort of looks from a database perspective is your meta page content comes in, then you've got this over here, which I've just called it PCA, page content A. That links up to another table, page content B. Page content B links up to C, and C links up to D, which is pretty much container, row, column, element. If you look at what this actually has inside it, it's very simple. I've got a one here with a type called container. A container can have a class or it can have a style. So I've literally added in the container as the type, the class that it could have, the style that it could have. In this case, I've put a background image as the style. And then obviously we've got the order, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, you could have 50 containers on a single page if you wanted. Inside each container, you can have 1 row or you could have 50 rows if you wanted. So the same thing happens over there. In number 2, we have a whole bunch of rows over here. That is their type. Each row can have its own column. Each row can have its own style, and each row can have its own order. And the same thing happens with number 3 over here. So 3, we've got all our columns. Here we can obviously choose that this is a 4 column or a 12 column or a 6 column. Each of these again has a class, a style, and an order. There's not much more you would really put on a container or a row or a column. So that kind of covers everything that you would need. And then within the content itself is where the tricky stuff comes in. You would have a type, which in this case I've said the type is a P tag. What is the content of the P tag? I am a dynamic paragraph. The order of that, which in this particular case is 2, so it's obviously going to be under the heading, which is 1. And it'll be a color of text secondary with dark, and it's got styles attached to that as well. So when you now look at this from like the index page perspective, and if I show you this in a browser quickly, let's go here. Sorry, clearly wants me to save or something. So there.
See your browser?
Yeah, you see it now. Okay, so here is the static content that I've put in there. This is a static heading, dynamic homepage body copy. It's coming in from a dynamic selector, but it's actually like a static piece. And this background is a static one. So this is to show you obviously how it sort of works from a static side. And then obviously you got this for dynamic. That I am a dynamic heading has come directly from the physical database. So if you look at this one's database, which is my test2 over here, if you look at this one's database, I close all those down because they're just confusing. So the content of the last database table, I am a dynamic heading. I am a dynamic paragraph is the second part of that, obviously, is coming in directly from there. Go to Google, is from there. So each and every piece can be controlled, and therefore, obviously, you can create an admin panel where you can make up complete layouts. And I mean, and literally, it's like there is no real thing that I have found is too much for this. I mean, just as a small example, just to show you what this is sort of capable of, you can look at a site that I've already created. There's actually a couple of them that I've done in the same way. So if you look at fens.co.uk, this entire website is completely created using this exact method, which I've just displayed. And as you can see, I mean, there's quite a bit to it. There's buttons and text and headings. There's everything. And it's fully content managed, this entire system. And obviously the navigation is fully dynamic. You can go to any page. There's gallery type pages. Let me just find a gallery page because that one was a little bit different. I think it's under inspiration, gallery. So these are gallery type pages which have these masonry type galleries. This was able to all be done dynamically. The client is able to upload their own images, change whatever they want, change headings, change navigation, you name it. And this is all done within that same 4-table type of solution. In this way of doing it, you land up with a massive database in the end of the day, because obviously every page and every word is controlled by database. But as far as code is concerned, you literally land up with a piece of code this sort of size over here. That entire site that I've just showed you now is controlled by, I think it was 75 lines of code for the entire website. So you cut down a hang of a lot of Wappler code and bring it all in dynamically. And the trick to this really is that I'm starting off with a repeater, which is repeating through every single one of the containers. So if you've got 10 containers on a page, well, then 10 containers will show up because of this repeat. Inside each container, I've nested a second repeat. Well, this one actually is just a DMX bind class. So I'm binding. If it has a class, then use the type as well as the class. So in this case, it'll be, say, container, as well as if it's got a class of, say, margin top 5, it'll concatenate the two together. If there is no class attached to the container, well, then just do the type. And if there's a style attached to it, then it'll put in the style. Then we repeat through that again, and we say, okay, now we've repeated every one of the containers. Now we repeat through all of the rows. So this one over here is taking PCB, which is obviously the second one, and it's doing the exact same thing as this top one. If there's a class there, then use the type plus the class. If there is no class attached to it, then just use the type, as well as add a style. And then we go down to the column area, exact same thing, where we are repeating through all the different columns. And really, this is the only sort of tricky part here. So what I've done here is I've used the DMX HTML section. And I've looked at this and I've said, how many different types of tags are there in HTML? And how differently are they physically written? So obviously, if you had to take a standard P tag, it starts with an opening P and it ends with a closing P. An H tag does the exact same thing. So all of these tags, I've just listed them easily here for you. But every one of those tags falls into the same category, where it is a start with a class and a style and a close. An image tag is obviously a bit different because it's got a class, a source, a width, a height, an alternate text, and then your A tags are also, again, slightly different, where you've obviously got an href for the URL. You've got a target, which can either be blank to open up in a new page or self, or a couple others. You've got a title, you've got rel, which is your no opener, no follower, no reference sort of thing. And then you've got the internal parts of the A tag. So if you cover within this DMX HTML and you say that the type is image, and whenever it finds a type of image, do that. And whenever it finds a type of A, do that. And for everything else, H1s, Ps, etc., do this part, then literally you can land up covering every single possibility that you may run into and land up with something like the test site, obviously, that I've shown. I mean, I know it's a very simple sort of thing, but as you can see, obviously, it is all dynamic and it is all coming in dynamically. And the about page has different content to the home page. So yeah, that's kind of where we go. So anybody got like questions at this stage?
Oh, wow. I had questions, but you just blew me away with that last part of the demo. That you're also getting all kinds of positive comments in the chat as well.
Oh, lovely.
The
obviously, I don't expect anybody to pick this up like in 2 seconds, but hopefully by going through this video of this actual chat, looking at the code that I've sort of shown and posted, you'll kind of get an idea for it. I mean, this may look extremely sort of scary offhand, but it really isn't, because in the end of the day, it's a simple case of that we've got a table which is called PCD-A, and another one which is B, and another one C, another one D. Each one of those has a type set to it. And so again, if you look at the Navicat area, you can see that I've physically got a type. So if it equals image, so in this case, it will equal image, then it's going to go and it's going to run this code. And although the code looks a little bit tricky, if I take a normal image tag over here and I put a normal image tag within this area just to like compare the differences, we are starting out with an open, which is there. Then we are breaking out of, we're breaking into dynamic or DMX related stuff. So we have this plus and we say, okay, now bring in PCD type. We know that the type is A. So all this is really going to do, we know the type of this is image. So all it's going to do is write the less than symbol with IMG next to it. And then it's going to add to that normal text, which is a space, class equals. And honestly, the only real change here is changing every single double quote to an and quote semicolon, which is just the HTML equivalent of a quote. And as long as you pretty much do that and break in and out of that the whole way, you're actually writing it just like a normal piece of HTML anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
I know I do things a bit differently to everyone else, but
Oh, could I just ask one question? A very simple one, actually.
Of course.
Why did you put the navigation bar in the PowerShell? The reason I ask is because when you use the layout, I regard it as a template.
Yes.
You're having the navigation bar on each page anyway.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the only reason why I actually did it was just to cut down the amounts of code that I'm scrolling through for you guys. You know what I mean? I wouldn't normally do that. In fact, most of the time I would put the navigation like directly in the index page as one of the first things. However, it does obviously change a bit because like that Fen site that I showed you was literally, even the navigation on that is completely dynamic navigation. So I kind of had to move it a little bit different places and add some conditions and so forth. Okay, other than that, that's
and the other question I've got is, I understand all of this, well, sort of.
We know I do everything different, Ben.
But how do you get the information into the database?
Well, you know, I created an admin area for my customer, And obviously, when I was building out the site, I did the same thing for myself. I first worked out sort of what tables I would need, etc., and worked out what sort of content I would need per table. And I said, okay, well, a container generally can only have a class or a style. So your tables are really pretty simple because you're starting with like URL 1. And in reality, if you wanted to go multiple levels deep, you would have URL 1 as one table. Then you would have URL 2 because you might have about / the team, you know what I mean? So I've actually got on my main websites, I've got like URL 1, 2, 3, and 4 as 4 different tables. Each of them link to each one. So it obviously all starts out on URL 1, but it's pretty much the same content. It's a name and a status. And for URL 2, it's got a foreign key that references URL 1, obviously. The meta page content table, obviously my main site has way more than this. This only has really the ID of the URL and the title, description, and a piece of body copy. Not that you need the body copy, but I have just put it there just to show it. And then this primary page content sort of table here, obviously you've got this container, class, style, order, because that's all you really need. And it's the exact same thing with the second one. It is type being your row. So the other one's type was container, obviously. This is type row, class, style, order. Same thing with the third one, type, class, style, order. The fourth one is really the only one that gets a little bit more tricky because your fourth one, obviously, you need to account for what type of content you're going to put in. So your fourth table becomes, say, order. I've put as the first thing in this one. I've got class, the same as what I had previous. Style, the same. The type, which will be your P, H1A, etc. Content, which is very generalized. And then I've put an image source column. So it obviously knows if this is type image, then use an image source. And an image source may have an alt tag. It may have a width. It may have a height. If it's a link, on the other hand, an A tag, then obviously it has to have a URL, a title, a target, and a rel tag. Not that I think many people use rel, but I tend to use it quite a bit from an SEO perspective. But yeah, that's pretty much all that's actually there. Does that sort of answer it?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm still thinking about the concept. It's great. I love it.
It is.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it gives you the same freedom as you have with WordPress. And my clients tend to love it because they are able to add and remove pages as they see fit. And they're able to add blocks of content to wherever they want. If I can basically create an admin panel that allows them to access the database, which is the simplest part, and it automatically writes in the bootstrap classes, of text secondary and stuff like that, then pretty much it all works out. And I mean, most of their site is kind of styled in such a way that they want to keep a uniform look throughout the whole site. So it's very static. I've kind of said, would you like a heading block? And they say, yes, I want a heading block. And that automatically chooses that the heading is pink and the text is gray and the background is an image. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it structures it in such a way. So in that way, it's not at all like WordPress, because obviously in WordPress, you could create anything that you want. And, you could do anything you like, but you are sort of stuck at some point. But it at least gives 90% of that sort of power as such to do all this stuff.
That's awesome. I have a question about, to build on Ben's question about how do you get the data into the database when it's things like uploading an image. That's relatively easy in Wappler, but how do you get the width and the height of the image into the database?
Most of the time, I actually used something from John L on the Wappler forums, and it was something to do with EXIF data. So he's got a plugin that he made called EXIF data or something to that effect, and that pulls, I mean, that not specifically for width and height, but that even pulls in like photographer names and stuff like that. The width and the height you can directly get from Wappler when you're doing an upload sort of step. You know, it's literally, it's within there when you click on it. Let me just add a quick API action.
It's the intrinsic data that's contained within an image.
Yeah, it's always there. So
Yeah.
that's really not too much of an issue, that particular part. I mean, this is, I probably shouldn't show you a client's actual work, but anyway, here we go. Having said that, but yeah, this sort of thing here, if you look at the code here for this index page, you will see that I've used, sorry, I've actually done this one in partials, main page content. So that same thing that we've just done now, that entire Fen site that I showed you with all those hundreds of pages is literally controlled by this code over here. And this particular piece is almost an exact duplicate all the way going down. So this is, if it's a masonry, use this type of code. If it's not a masonry, then use this type of code. It's almost identical, just with some minor little differences, you know, like where a div would start and end. If it's an accordion, do this sort of code. Again, it's a full duplication. So we land up where that entire Fen site is crammed into 96 lines of code to show 170 odd pages. Makes sense.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it can be pretty powerful.
And how do you go with the URL? I see that you've got just the one index page.
Yes.
And you probably have a what do you call it? After the question mark, the page itself, the name of the page.
So all I actually do here is I go again with the same thing. So I've got page ID A over there. So if you wanted this to go 4 tiers deep, so like about / the team / Fred Flintstone / contact details, you know what I mean? If you had a 4-tier sort of thing like that, it would literally be page ID B / and the exact same thing again for C and D. And then I just bring in those parameters each and every single time. So this will be D, and that one there will be C. And in fact, this one I've said I don't want any more parameters afterwards. So I've taken away the question mark for the last one pretty much and uploaded that as my root. And then when I've come into the server action side of things here, sorry, that one, all I've done is I've added more parameters. Sorry, it's this one. So I've just gone here and I've said, okay, this one is now page ID B and C and D. Yeah. So maybe what I'll do is, if anybody is interested in doing something like this, I could provide some sort of a code to get them sort of started, or some sort of a package to get them kind of started with using this kind of a system. But yeah, I mean, I've been using Wappler for like 2 years before I sort of figured out to do it this way, because customers were just wanting more control of their own content. And obviously it was difficult to provide them that sort of control as it was previously.
That's amazing. We have another question in the chat. Is there a performance issue with all the data coming from the database, like that might penalize SEO, for example?
I personally haven't seen any form of performance issue. I'm running it on a Docker machine in like the London server or whatever. And I think I'm running it on a $12 server or something, $12 a month server. I haven't noticed anything too bad. The actual stats on the Docker machine tell me that I'm running well within range. And I mean, that particular website sees on average maybe about 25,000 visitors a month in total. So it's not like it's got a high amount of traffic, but it's not terrible either. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The is it possible, or would you consider following on with this presentation, showing the admin portion that you built that feeds the database?
Yeah, the admin one. Let's see here. I've disabled it, but let me just show a little piece of it here. Not going to show the sort of the front end. Let me just see. Just trying to work out if anything here is a little bit sensitive.
We can, yeah, I don't want to.
We won't tell.
Yeah. All this commented out code over here is literally part of feeding that database. So literally I've commented out all this code so the customer basically couldn't get back there, because this was while I was developing. So every bit that you see there was my sort of admin area, and I literally only used that while developing the site. And this was to upload images and to do whatever else I needed. I'm just going to see if I can re-enable it easily, because I think what I did, let's see here, bar editor. That's the head. Sorry, just one moment. Yeah, I can't really take you into the live one because I'll be, it's got logging on it and all sorts of stuff. So they will see that I've gone in there.
No worries, Paul. We can talk about doing a follow-on session.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll put some little like a mini sort of document together almost, kind of showing that, because obviously like this, what I did was I added that when you key down with shift and control and the letter G, then it showed up the content editor. And then obviously the client went in and pretty much put in all the content for me. So my customer did all the content work. I just did all the design work as such for this particular one.
It's a nice design too.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes out pretty damn well, I must say. And yeah, and they're using it for a few different sites, parklands and fens and so forth and so forth. So yeah,
very good.
Very, very well.
Well, we're coming to the end of our hour. I'd like to I have some closing comments I'd like to make, but I'd like to have one more shout out. If there's any other questions, please feel free to put a question in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. Now would be the time.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Paul again for investing the time and trouble to present to us today. That's I'm gonna have to watch this at least 3 times to to follow your, but I'm gonna call it genius. I don't know what you would call it, but I'm gonna call it genius.
Oh no.
And also, I want to give a shout out to other Wapplers. If you'd like to present, I know following Paul's kind of challenging, but I'm sure you can do it. If you'd like to present on a topic, please reach out to Mark 1 in the forum. We want to remind everybody that we do the Wappler meetups once a month, the first Friday of every month at 4 p.m. Netherlands time. And if you have any questions, if there's ever anything that I can do to help, please reach out on the forum. I'd be more than happy to do what I can. And with that, we don't seem to have any other questions. I think we're good to go.
Yeah, perfect.
Just one more thing, please.
No worries. Yes.
I hear you talk about what is it, the containers and
yes,
hosting on a $12 site.
Yes,
I'd love to see something on that.
No problem. Yeah,
next month maybe.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. I'll show it all to you,
Fantastic.
not a problem. All good. Just give me a shout whenever you're free, and yeah, I'll run through it with you.
On what? Not through this media?
No, yeah, well, I mean, that'll all be quite sensitive sort of stuff to show you their stats, etc. But yeah, it'll be interesting to just show you how it's all put together. I mean, I don't know if you guys would like a video course or a presentation on how to put that sort of stuff together, but I think that that's all pretty much covered in like a lot of the training stuff that's been done already. I think, like putting the Docker on and getting it all there. Or am I confused?
Which host have you got?
DigitalOcean.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've just literally put it on a DigitalOcean container directly through Wappler. So Wappler did everything for me basically. I just created an API key, and it put it all together for me. Everything.
Okay. Thank you for that.
No
Fantastic presentation, by the way.
No, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a lot to cram in a very short space of time. I was like, okay, if anyone knows me, they know that I don't do things in 1 hour. My videos are 5 hours, and that's just to tell you how to do a full stop.
Well, you got this one in an hour. You did a great job.
There we go. Wonderful. I'm glad.
All right.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to hearing from you in the forum and seeing you next month.
Perfect.
Be well.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye now.